one of the Korean teachers had like a little kimchi roll and came up to me and was like, "Open up!" Hello friends! For today's video, I have been given a mission by the Kose's K-influencers, a group of Korea-related video content creators. The mission title is The Korea That I've Experienced, so today I want to share some instances with you where I experienced Korea in a very memorable way. As some of you might already know, I've been living in Korea for about 5 years so far, and although most of that time was pretty happy, living alone in a foreign country can also be very hard and lonely at times. But the experiences that I want to tell you about today are what helped me through these tough and lonely times and made my life here so much more special. And there is a keyword tying these experiences together, and that is jong. I mentioned this before, but jong is a Korean word for a type of warm-heartedness, a kind spirit, or a certain type of affection. So let me share some of the jong-filled moments of my life here in Korea so far. One of the first things that comes to my mind concerning this topic is the family that owned the room that I lived in when I first moved to Korea. This was in 2015 when I came here as a university exchange student. This family had offered a room right above their own apartment near the university that I was going to study at, Myeongji University, and it was fully furnished. It looked really nice, so it was the perfect fit. And although this could have been just a very ordinary landlord-tenant relationship, that family was very special. At that time, I could still barely speak Korean. I had never lived abroad for more than 3 months, and even then it was always with a family member or somebody else. So in a way, I was pretty much helpless. I didn't even know how to use the rice cooker in my room because not only had I never seen a rice cooker like in real life before, but especially not one where all the buttons were in Korean. So when I asked the mom of the Langbot family how to use the rice cooker, she not only explained all the options and functions, but washed the rice for me, showed me how it's washed, showed me how I should measure it, and yeah, helped me through the whole process. And the next day she brought me a couple of banchan, which are Korean handmade side dishes, because she was worried that I would just eat plain rice otherwise. This actually happened a couple of times, like her bringing over some food, some banchan, and I even remember the grandma of that family coming over and bringing me different kinds of fruits. They were really so sweet. The family even invited me to dinner one time where they had prepared a feast of shrimp and clams and octopus, all different kinds of seafood that are not that common or not that easy to get in Germany, but they prepared them in the Korean style way and really made a great experience for me. And all this was just done out of the kindness of their hearts. They saw this young student living alone abroad in a foreign country and were trying to make me feel a little bit more at home, a little bit more comfortable. So I really appreciated their efforts at the time, and I still have very good memories of them even now. Another instance where I experienced the Korean jong is with a former university professor of mine. I met this professor in Germany when I listened to his lecture. I think he was staying in Germany for 1 or 2 semesters at the time. And when I came to study in Korea, I got into contact with him again through a former classmate. And although he was very busy working at his home university again, he invited me to campus, he introduced me to different people in the academic field, and he even took me on a group field trip to a cultural heritage site in the area. But the thing I'm most thankful for is when my parents came to visit me here in Korea, he took us on a day trip to Ganghwa-do Island. Ganghwa-do is an island west of Seoul, and it is not super far away, but it is still kind of hard to get to if you don't have a car. So if it had not been for the professor, we would not have been able to go there. That's why we were so excited, because Ganghwa-do is a great place to visit. If you're into Dolmen as much as I am, you can visit the Ganghwa-Dolmen site. And if you have no idea what dolmen are, those are like ancient stone structures that for some reason I really like. Of course, you can also visit historical sites. like the Gwangseongbo Fortress or the Dokjinji Fortress, or the beautiful Cheondeungsa Temple. But this is not a travel recommendation video, so let's get back on track. The professor took us on a tour of all these highlights of Ganghwa-do Island, where he gave us our personal history lecture, and he even looked up a popular restaurant to eat in. The fact that he spent one day of his precious weekend touring us around and teaching us about his country's history and culture was not only immensely appreciated by my parents and me, but also such a clear display of the hospitality side of Jeong. So this trip is not only a precious memory of mine, but also of my parents as well. Another time that I truly experienced Korea's Jeong was during a volunteering activity to make kimchi. In November or December each year, most Korean families gather to mass-produce kimchi, which will then last months into the new year. This kimchi making process is called kimjang, and every year in November or December there are a lot of volunteering activities for kimjang to prepare the kimchi for people who might not be able to do it themselves. And my exchange university also had such a volunteering activity where we prepared kimchi for elderly people who were living alone. I think I only got to know about this activity through a Korean friend, and most of the exchange students didn't even know about it. Or maybe they did know about it but didn't want to participate because it was at 9 a.m. on a Saturday and they just wanted to sleep in. I was actually a bit nervous about going there because my Korean at the time was still very lacking, and I was worrying that I would be more of a hindrance rather than a help to the volunteering activity. But that worry was not necessary at all. All the people at the event were so welcoming and understanding towards me, and if I didn't understand some explanation, they would just show it to me directly or, use body language to explain something to me. And the best part was when we were finishing up the kimchi, one of the Korean teachers had like a little kimchi roll and came up to me and was like, "Open up!" And at first I didn't understand what she wanted because in Germany it's not really common for adults to feed each other. Like, you would not hand feed somebody unless they are a baby. But she was feeding me the kimchi as an appreciation of my hard work, and I also got to feed some of the other volunteers too. At the time it definitely felt kind of weird to be a bunch of adults just hand feeding each other kimchi, but at the same time it was such a nice experience, acting as if we're one big family and enjoying the fruit of our labor together. Afterwards, we all had lunch together with the freshly made kimchi, which is my favorite kind, by the way. And then we brought the kimchi to a nearby police station from where it would be distributed. And even there we were greeted warmly and the policemen congratulated us on our hard work. And I think they bought us some ice cream. Like, I definitely remember being like, "Why are we eating ice cream in winter?" And one of my Korean friends explaining to me that that's the only time that you can comfortably eat ice cream without it melting all over the place. And I guess that made a lot of sense. But in Germany, we just don't eat ice cream in winter. Like, sometimes there are things that you just never did, you never even considered. And then so you see somebody else do it and it's like, oh yeah, you can do that. That's an okay thing to do. So in a sense, that day was really a day of culture shocks for me. Adults feeding each other, eating ice cream in winter, but they were definitely very amusing, very fun and enjoyable culture shocks. Anyway, I feel like kimjang is inherently a very Jeong-filled activity, but donating kimchi to the people in need and the community spirit that we had on that day just took it to a whole nother level. So these were 3 instances where I really felt I experienced the true Korea in all its Jeong-filled glory. Of course, there were many more, often small and everyday kind of instances where I felt I experienced the Korean Jeong, but these 3 are the most representative ones. So although I too have experienced my fair share of hardship and frustrating moments in Korea, the overarching theme for me seems to be Jeong, the welcoming and warm-hearted attitude of the Koreans. I hope you enjoyed these stories and are reminded to always try to look for the good in any situation. Stay happy and healthy, and I will see you soon. Bye bye!